A year ago this week, Ninjago's final season, Crystalized, was released. This was the last season of the first Ninjago series, which had ran for 12 years. And it was one of the show's most hyped up seasons. But in the end, it became one of the show's most controversial. Today, we're examining why this is the case, and how the community's view of Crystalized has changed during the last year. Hey everyone, welcome back for my look at Crystalized, just over a year after its release. Like Season 11, Crystalized is the show's longest season and had a ton of different storylines and characters. It picked up where Nia's story left off in Seabound. It featured the Overlord after 8 years. There was really something from every era of Ninjago, and for every fan of Ninjago, at least in concept. The Vengeance story itself had also been foreshadowed for 2 years. So yeah, this was definitely one of Ninjago's most anticipated stories. And personally, I expected it to become one of Ninjago's top 5 seasons. And I'm sure other fans felt similarly. Now, of course, people have very different opinions on Crystalized. Some love it, some hate it. People like myself don't really have strong opinions on it. But one thing everyone can agree on is this season was very controversial. And it's interesting, because most people love the season's first part. When those first 12 episodes released in May, the general consensus was that, hey, these episodes are pretty good. There were concerns about stuff such as Ruby's return, but the first 12 episodes were definitely well received. But it was the season's second part in late September that caused controversy. Some stories, such as Ruby's redemption and Lloyd's Oni story, were described as ruining the characters. Other parts of the season were described as pushing harmful messages, such as Nia's powers returning. It went against Ninjago's big idea that powers don't define a hero, or Lloyd's forgiveness of Ruby, someone whose actions tormented him for years. That was seen by some viewers as the idea that it's okay to forgive abusers. Also, for a season that was hyped up so much as being this final season, it really felt like every character just got a very happy ending. This season has zero important consequences. The only consequences were the ninja losing their powers, which was immediately undone. The vision that guided the season was that the characters deserved happy endings, because it was the end of a 15-season show, and it would be wrong to conclude Ninjago any other way. It's definitely a nice feeling, but I feel it was the wrong approach for the season, and led to some stories that felt very purposeless. That's still how I feel today, and Roots is quite a bad episode, but I do still quite enjoy Part 1, which a lot of other fans don't really. A lot of people, because of how Part 2 turned out, kind of soured on Part 1, which is definitely a natural way to feel. So despite Part 1's popularity back in May, because of Part 2, it never really kept that reputation. Of course, you have your fans who loved Crystalized. This definitely wasn't a universally disliked season. People enjoyed the returning villains, and there were definitely fans who enjoyed Ruby's redemption as well. When she died 5 years ago in Hunted, some people were definitely upset about that. So I'm sure those same people were happy to see her redeemed here. So those were some of the reactions to Crystalized back then. There were a lot of fans who decided not to watch Dragons Rising because of how Crystalized turned out. Personally, I was always going to watch it, but I wasn't super interested. And it was the least excited I felt for Ninjago in years. Crystalized to me showed that Ninjago had become very stale, and it needed big changes to survive and revive itself. And I wasn't confident the next series could pull that off, but it definitely did. Dragons Rising Season 1, Part 1 was really well done, and it certainly addressed concerns I had after Crystalized. And for many other fans too. And so a year later, I feel the outrage and disappointment over Crystalized has definitely lessened to an extent. Some of that is because time has passed and people move on, but a big factor I feel is the success of Dragons Rising. The first part of Season 1 back in June showed that this season wasn't going to make the same mistakes as Crystalized, and the overall changes of Dragons Rising really revitalized the show. And so moved on to new stuff and left those mistakes and flawed stories from Crystalized behind. And I believe a lot of people have been able to kind of move on from Crystalized too, knowing that Ninjago is hopefully in a better place now. I'm really glad Dragons Rising moved on to its own thing, instead of trying to fix Crystalized's mistakes, because I don't really feel that would have been possible. Those mistakes were unfortunate, but what's done is done, and there's no really fixing them. The best thing to do is just move on and prevent those mistakes from happening again, which at least in its first part, Dragons Rising has done. We do still have the rest of Dragons Rising Season 1 to see, which should release on October 12th, but from what we've seen now, Dragons Rising is successful. And that success has made myself and others feel less disappointed about Crystalized. So a year later, yeah, Crystalized is still a disappointing season, but ultimately it's in the past. Dragons Rising is the present and the future. And for now, that future looks very bright. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, subscribe, share with anyone different you know. Share your opinions on Crystalized a year after its release below, and I'll see you guys next time.